Welcome to the Angels, Magic and Joy podcast. This podcast is for those who seek answers from above, guidance and magical inspiration.
Immerse yourself in the realms of magic, angels, fairies, unicorns, dragons, and so much more. I'm Kirsty Jandrell, and I'm delighted to be here with you today.
And I am Kate Lachman.
Hello, and welcome everybody to the Angels, Magic and Joy podcast. And today, Kate and I are super excited because we've got an extra special guest today. In fact, without this guest, I think it would be true to say that this podcast would not exist. So Calista, thank you so much for joining us. We're so honoured. And yeah, you are literally the catalyst, the impetus for this podcast. It was during Kate and it was the weekend Kate and I met, and firstly Calista brought us together that way because we were training as angel healing trainers, teacher trainers, and Calista had first voiced the desire to create a podcast devoted to the angelic realms, and in particular to focus on angel healing as a modality. So yeah, we just wanted to extend a huge thank you and a warm welcome. And Calista, for those listeners who may not be aware of you and all the magical work that you do, could you please just take a moment to share a little bit about this and indeed about you?
Sure, I would love to. I love that you shared that story because we never really know when we receive these little seeds of inspiration what is going to come, what is going to birth from that. So I'm so glad that you have created this beautiful space that's helping so many people and inspiring and bringing us all together. And that's really what it's about, isn't it? It's about community and creating this family space so that we can connect with one another. So I used to be a cancer research scientist, very different to the path that I'm on now, but I believe that the path that we choose for this particular life that we're living, there is, even though I can look back and think that wasn't really a spiritual awakened part of my life, it really was in many ways, and I still take a lot of my scientific journey into what I do now, working with the angels and the unicorns and the dragons and the elementals, in that I don't believe and buy into something if I've not had an experience of it. And I think that's where the science and spiritualities meet within me. So I only provide a course or teachings or material if I have worked through and connected with that deity or that elemental or that angel. So it really comes from a place of experience rather than just something that's, coming in and coming out of me. I'm really letting it integrate. So I guess you could call me a channel, but also a guide. I've written books on working with angels and unicorns and Ascension, but I very much am also just a grounded human being, mother of 3 beautiful babies, live in the countryside here in Scotland where magic is very much alive, and it is definitely a passion of mine to support people to connect with their own nature through spirituality, angel-based spirituality, and ascension as a whole as we raise and expand our frequency. I feel like that's why I'm here, and it's a joy. So I'm excited to see what comes forward in this conversation to support those that are listening.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Calista. And as Kirsty said, you are the catalyst for what's happening here, and so we can meet today and chat as well. And when we were diving into the topic today, I wanted to talk generally about healing, and particularly to talk about the importance of it as the role it plays, especially now, considering everything that's happening on the planet and in the universe, and the journey that we are at as a humanity So, starting with the basics, how do you understand the term healing? What is healing, Calista?
I think that term can be described. I think the definition that I'm going to share is definitely different to a definition that I would have shared 10 years ago. And that's just down to how much we have grown collectively as a human race. When I started this path with the angels, creating a system called angel healing and unicorn healing, it very much was about looking at the parts of us within us in our life that are out of kilter of our truth and our purpose, the conditionings, the beliefs, the trauma, and healing those aspects. And while that's still true, I do feel, as much as the angels and guides do, that no one really actually needs fixed. No one actually really does need healing unless they believe it's so. And then, as a healer, as a conduit, as we all are, and many of the listeners, we can then hold the space for them to come back to the wholeness, to the health, to the empowered sovereign self that they are. Wherever they feel like there is dis-ease or disharmony, we can help to provide that space. And I believe that's the space of the healer. That's the role of the healer. Um, but yeah, healing is one of these words that can really poke and provoke a person. So it's so subjective. I think it's down to the person, but definitely that definition has changed over the years, as it's less about processing ourselves, isn't it? It's less about saying this is bad and this is shameful and this is dark and this is unhealed, and more about, okay, well, how can I bring that all into wholeness? How can I include that, rather than feel like that's a separate part of me that I need to pick at or have somebody focus on? How can I just instead bring it in? So maybe we should maybe we should change the modality to angelic wholeness, unicorn wholeness. I don't know. Down the line.
Yeah. Oh no, I love the fact that, thank you. I love the fact that you acknowledge the evolution of us as a species, as a consciousness, as a collective consciousness, and how that your relationship with the phrase healing and the you're so experienced in it and in creating these modalities that it's changed. And yeah, and that idea that no one needs fixing. We're all absolutely perfect as we are, yet we can find deeper levels of wholeness. So thank you, that's beautiful. So thinking, Calista, of a healing session, whether that's an angel healing session or a unicorn healing session or whatever it may be, whatever modality, you talked about very much the healer as a facilitator of the space, to hold that space for the client to sort of process. How would you say, what are your thoughts on who is actually doing the healing? Do you have any specific thoughts on that?
This is an interesting one as well. Over the years, 15 years of teaching these courses, and you see so many, everybody is beautiful in their own way, but some people that will come through the degrees will think, I'm doing the healing, I'm a light worker, I'm doing it. And the thing is, as they go through the degree levels, they become more empowered and the ego starts to dissolve, because they're not really the ones doing the healing. We're not affecting any change. Change only comes through the willingness of the other person to open to and come back into their wholeness. That's it. So what we do is we provide a space where a template, if you like, a vibratory template that is resonating health, is resonating whatever aspect. Say they have a disease, a particular condition, or they're coming, for example, with grief. We're not negating that grief. We're not saying it doesn't exist. Instead, we're just holding that space for them to feel, for example, the grief, allow their heart to be open, and at the same time hold the template of everything's absolutely as it should be right now. When you are ready, for example, because grief's a funny one, isn't it? Sometimes it can take absolute years to move through that process, and it really is a journey of itself. So we meet the client where they are, we hold the space that is a match to the level of healing, the level of empowerment that they are ready to match to align to. And out with that, that's it. We don't hold any judgment. And this may sound a little bit cold, but we don't even hold hope. Because in hope, if you really feel into hope, there's still a clinging. There's still a sense of the practitioner or the client holding on to an expectation of what that session is going to do. So instead, when we hold the space as the healer, we're just that open channel, conduit, platform, and guide for the angels, for example. They meet and align to that vibration that they're ready for, and there is no judgment or hope. There's just that knowingness. Because if we look back at all the different healers and the ascended masters, they never pushed an outcome, they never pushed a healing. They just literally held the space and saw that other person in their perfect, just as perfect, just in their perfect vibration. And I love that. And it's a really humble reminder that it's never the self, it's never the human self doing the healing. Yet we have such a valuable and beneficial role as that bridge between heaven and earth. It's a co-creative process with the angels. So we shouldn't downplay our part in the process. So yeah, a long answer there, but definitely a balance, isn't it? It's a balance between the ego, balance between our spirit as well. We have to know our part, but not be attached to the outcome, not be attached.
That's so beautiful, Calista. Thank you so much for sharing. I feel like it's very important to remind us about that, and that detachment from the outcome. And I wonder if it's connected. If you can share a bit more about being drained after the sessions, and I suppose lots of us, lots of those who are listening to us now, probably many of them healers, can 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 have at least one experience like that. So what can cause that feeling of being drained after? Is it connecting with being attached to the outcome, or is there any other factors that can cause it, and how can we avoid it?
Yeah, I think out the goodness of our heart, we want the other person to feel better. So there is a hope, there is an expectant energy that we put upon them, ourself, and the energy of the space. Yeah, I mean, the first time I channeled, I was about to say performed, but I wasn't performing. I was channeling Reiki, but back then I probably was performing it because I felt like, you know, I had to do this, this, and this in order for there to be some result. But the first time channeled Reiki for a client, she came to me and she said, I've been having Reiki for many years from another practitioner, and I'm not going to tell you any of my ailments because I want you to know them. I want you to get them. And I thought, so immediately she had set that as me to be this psychic detective and be able. So because of that, I really put more attachment to the outcome, and because of that, there was lots of things that was picked up, and she was like, yeah, but the main thing was her IBS, and she left that session feeling completely free of cramps and bloating. She was like, this is incredible, I haven't felt this good in ages. And then a couple of hours after she left, I was in knots with IBS because I'd literally taken on, I'd literally imprinted. I wanted to affect change so much. I took that energy and it rested in my body. Now, I believe as conduits and channels, we are doing this 24/7, whether it is in an actual session with somebody, whether we're talking to somebody on the street, even strangers. I think as empaths and healers and space holders, we do this, and it's just part of our dharma, it's just part of our life purpose. But if there is no attachment to the outcome, then it moves through us. And that's why when we can be with our client for example, we can say, oh, I'm really feeling lower back pain. If you had lower back pain, and of course, normally they say they have. So you're picking up these imprints, but you're not letting them stay with you. They only stay with you if you are putting too much of your own influence into this situation, and I think it happens all the time. And it happens to keep us humble, to teach us what is happening at a subtle energetic level, because we're not seeing, unless you're adept at seeing energy, we're not seeing how these imprints, these underlying dynamics on the mental, spiritual, and physical body are happening. We don't see that. You can feel it afterwards. We can feel the emotion. We can feel whatever they have presented in the session, and then we can take it on. And if we're not aware of that, then we then leech that and project that onto our family or our own environment. So we have to be so discerning if we're calling ourselves a healer or a space holder, we've got to have really good spiritual hygiene, really good spiritual discernment, make sure where our own intention is for the session. Because a lot of the times we ask our client, what's your intention for this session? But what is your intention as the space holder? That's something that we don't often talk about, or probably people don't think about that. So I always like to say, before I do any healing work or client work, is I'll say, I put my own stuff to the side. I have no hope for my client. I know that sounds horrible. I have no hope for them. I have no attachment to them, because I know that they will receive and hear and experience exactly what they need to. You come into a space of absolute trust, that becomes your protection. That becomes the shield, if you like, if you feel you need any shield, so that you're not taking on anything from the client. And ever since I've done that, I've felt great afterwards. And I used to feel so drained, especially from teaching angel healing, for example, a whole day course. At the end, I would just feel so heavy, because I had such a hope for everybody. I had such an aspiration, and now I just trust that they will receive exactly what they need to. And then it takes the pressure off me, because I'm just there as a bridge. I'm not there to do it for them. So perhaps this sounds a little bit cold, but I think it's a teaching that's important to talk about as we advance and we become a lot more sensitive, a lot more adept as well. We're becoming a lot more empathic and psychic. So we need to remember these basics, so that we are, what we are feeling as our disease, if you like, is our own and not something we have picked up from another person.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Calista. That's so beautifully explained, and it doesn't sound cold at all. And you are the epitome of embodied love, so we know that that's not the case. But it is so important, and it's I remember you taught us so well very early on that the importance of spiritual hygiene and why and how, and that's something that I know we've really taken from you, so thank you. And yeah, so just wanting to now just dive into the subject of consciousness and the different realms of consciousness and how they might play out, and how significant they are really as a tool in the healing process, please. And how we hear of people talking about different levels of consciousness and dimensions all the time, but just wondering from your perspective how you feel that's that impacts on the healing process.
I think it depends on their own, where they are in their awareness. And another way of saying that, to bring it more down to earth, is what is their level of clinging? Where are they clinging on to will determine their level of consciousness. And consciousness is different from awareness. Awareness has no attachment at all. Consciousness still has all of your soul's memories, your areas of refinement, your dharma, if you like. Whereas awareness is devoid of all of that. It is the spaciousness. It is the moment where you just lose yourself in a moment of magic. You know, when you're looking into the sunlight and there's nothing. You're not thinking about what you're cooking for dinner or or the busyness or anything. You're just there. You're in the oneness. Like that's pure awareness. And I think a lot of the times people confuse awareness with consciousness. Consciousness is the level of vibration that we are at in that given moment. And that can be influenced by so much. Our consciousness can be influenced by the environment, by other people, by the thoughts that we're running, for example. And so, how that relates to dimensions, I think dimensions again is just another construct. It's just another way of our mental body to understand something that is non physical. And again, if you'd asked me that a couple of years ago, I would probably start talking about 3D, 4D, 5D, and beyond. But really, these are just dimensional frequencies. Another way of saying it is libraries of information that we can access, integrate, understand, and then we expand more and more and more. We gain more information. Are we learning something new? I don't believe so. I think we're just remembering. I think there's this beautiful breadcrumb trail all the way to source. And within that breadcrumb trail, there is levels of dimension, aka levels of consciousness. But in between everything, there is pure awareness. And that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in how can I be pure love and awareness 24/7. And it's a bloody dance, especially when you have 3 young kids and a business and all of the rest, and a cat that always wants to be fed. Like, it's really interesting. How can you consistently just be awareness? 2024 feels like it's given us an opportunity to exit wherever we're holding on to that dualism in our life, wherever we're holding on to, if you like, dualism even in the spiritual world, all these different concepts. How can we transition, use them to understand things that we can't see? That's fine. Use them as constructs, but how can we navigate and transcend out of them into a state of awareness? Then there is no judging. This is this dimension, and that is that dimension, and this is this consciousness. It all just is. All just becomes, everything just becomes valuable. And you know who teaches me this the most is my 7-year-old, called Eden. And when I was carrying him, his soul said that he was here to help birth new Eden, to help birth new earth. And he comes away, he is the most grounded, I wouldn't even say spiritual on the surface, like he's not interested in anything. Yet he comes away with the most profound wisdom that I'm just gobsmacked. And we talk about at nighttime, we do a technique from my first book, Unicorn Rising, called Magic 9 for Sleep Divine, which is 9, what you've appreciated, 9 different things throughout that day. And normally we'll talk about what's made them smile, what's lit them up, what's made them happy. But he talks about the sadness. He talks about the anger. He appreciates everything. And why that I find that so wise is because he's not seeing any dualism. He's not seeing this is good and this is bad. He's just naturally appreciating everything. So I sit there and I go, Eden, do you not want to appreciate something positive? And then there, I catch myself in my own dualism. Why do I want to judge that? Why can't I just accept that he, in his master perception, is seeing God in all? He's through the eyes of pure awareness, and it's so beautiful. So that would be my answer to that one. But what about you, Kirsty? How do you feel?
I think that's so gorgeous. That's so that we've definitely got this generation of special children coming through, where just, yeah, they're so wise. Yeah, I think like you, I feel that there's this tendency to have to label things, and you know, we're moving from, yeah, we're technically on a 5D earth at the moment, and we're all very much trying in the light worker community to become that and embody that, and yeah, there's almost sort of a sort of a pushing energy in that. So I love your comment about awareness, because that is everything. And you mentioned the magic, and you know, that still point of just appreciating Mother Nature, and you know, and again, this is where my 6-year-old comes in. She will, on the way to school, walking from the house to the car, we have a path that runs to the garden. Me and her father are sort of in this hurry energy, and she's stopping to look at the snowdrops and the, you know, the spiders on the you're like, we're going to be late. So, you know, they're so they are so wise. So yeah, I love that, just coming back to awareness, because yeah, I feel as healers, this is our part of our role to play, isn't it, to be that still point, to hold that non-judgmental, impartial, loving, open space. So
And to be easy on ourselves and understand that this is a school. This is Earth school. And while, you know, if we take ourselves back to how we were in, say, the physical school that we knew as children, did we have days where we got it, where we got the lessons, where we understood everything and felt like we were on this upward projection? Absolutely not. And there was days we wanted to have days off from school. And it's the same in adulthood. We want days off sometimes. But we can't get days off with the ascension process. And I think once we say yes to raising and expanding our consciousness to then be that gateway to come into our awareness, every day is a school day, like my friend says. There's teaching in everything. There's and I think that's why Jesus, I'm not a Christian, but I go back to a lot of his teachings. You know, he taught a lot of his teachings through analogies of nature. And I do the same because it's so relatable. And nature is this beautiful canvas where there is not really anything dualistic about nature. Because even in the mud, you can find beauty. Even in like a decayed root of a tree, there's so much life.
yeah.
So it's right there on our doorstep. And I think we're starting to understand that, and more people are leaning towards nature-based spirituality because it's softer. There's no religious dogma. There's no, you know, it has to be a certain way. She just embraces all, and I believe that's why she is ascending in so much grace, giving us the invitation, should we wish, in this particular incarnation of Earth School, do you want to go to the next class? Yes, okay. Well, these are the lessons. Embrace them if you want. I think honestly it's as simple as that. What do you think, Kate?
Yeah, and I feel like it's, as a humanity, we're doing that circle of coming back, because I feel that's where we came from the wisdom of the nature, and then on the top of that we got those concepts, we got those ideas. But I suppose, as we are nature, it's the base, that's the purest form of spirituality you can experience, and where you can really connect as at the purest level. And I love how you say it, and I always believe that you know, we might have our spiritual practices, but then at one point everything is a spiritual practice. As in nature, when there's death, when there is being reborn, or clipping on the spring, and I love the beautiful part of it, aligning to the seasons, and as we go through the seasons ourselves, and like you say, there's none of it is good or bad, and there is no fear as well, because I would find it a lot in the practices, there could be a lot of it fear based, you know, that you need to protect yourself, or there could be, you know, different beings that you should protect yourself. In nature there is no fear, it's just, it comes and it goes. process, and it's like a natural process. I absolutely love that. I'd like to come back a bit to the healing, and as a collective, as a humanity at this time of our path of ascension. Do you feel like there is a particular need, or maybe even opportunity? Do you feel like there is more of us, or there is a bigger need than ever of healing, of self-healing, and facilitating the space for others to heal? Do you feel like, especially, and you mentioned 2024, and maybe you can give us some insights. We chat about that before we started, and you give us, because we all want to hear those little nuggets. Calista, just give it all to us. We want to know it all. So how do you feel regarding healing? Do you feel like there is a bigger than ever need of healing, and to be for each other?
I see more and more people coming into the world of healing, but coming into it from the definition that we discussed at the start of this, rather than from a place of from a lack mentality and a lack perspective. They're coming because they want to connect with all of these beautiful beings to empower their life and to be that space of empowerment, that template of empowerment for their family and their friends and for the community. And so many people that come, for example, to level one, as you'll know soon by teaching your own courses, they'll progress to practitioner level, progress to teacher, because, and it's not just angel healing, it's different modalities as well, is because there's such tremendous growth when you take the time to, for example, give yourself self-healing. Self-healing practices, I think, are one of the things that are the first to go when people go through their levels. Like at level one, for example, if we talk about angel healing, there's so much self-healing, isn't there? Self-healing, sitting down with each of the 34 angels, having those conversations, getting to know them through giving to self, through opening up your channel. And then hitting the practitioner level, it's more about giving the healing to others. And then the self-healing sort of dwindles. Would you agree with me? And it dwindles, and then you start putting other people first and priorities first. And I'm exactly the same. But there will never be, and it's almost like my body has its own intelligence. Before I go to sleep every night, I still lay my hands on me every night. And it's got to the point where I'm not even consciously aware that, right, I'm going to do a self-healing session. I'm just doing it. It's just there. Because I believe at the center of our palms, whether we're connected and have been attuned, for example, to deities and ascended masters and angels, we have the ability to channel light through us and into our body. And I believe that is so important. It's like the foundation of any energy healing modality, but always the basics are the first to go, because people want to know the new shiny technique, the new shiny toy, the new shiny angel, and they forget the crux of it, which is connection. And self-healing, why I see so many people advance so much when they make self-healing a priority. For example, in the unicorn healing modality over 13 weeks, every week people are self-healing with different unicorns. And their ascension is staggering, what they're able to do in 13 weeks. Is that necessarily down to what the unicorns are providing? Maybe. Is it more so because they're actually giving healing to themselves? Yeah. They're creating the time to listen. They're creating the space to hear, because intuition isn't just these insights that come to us. Our body, the way our body speaks and moves, that's intuition. So when you, Kirsty, you'll know this as well with your dance, with your movement, like your body's constantly speaking to you, constantly showing you where there is spaces to bring in the light or to resolve. And yeah, self-healing provides that time to pause and receive. So I believe no matter how many, whatever year we are on, whatever the ascension themes are for the year, that's the basics. As well as that's the most profound. That's where the shifts are going to happen, when we prioritize ourselves. And how many level 3s, that's the teacher trainings, have come to me teacher trainees, and I'll say, "Are you still doing self-healing every day?" They're not. And that's okay. I want them to be honest. But when they start coming back to that, then they're engaged, then their life advances, and it's not just a little spiritual dalliance anymore. It becomes their life, like you said, Kate. Your spiritual practice is not just something that you dip into, it's your life. It shifts and it becomes your life. So yeah, self-healing definitely can provide that space. 2024 is asking for us to really be open into greater conversation more with ourselves, but also with our team more, and to live more in harmony with one another. So, again, there is no division. We're in that constant conversation every day, even if we're doing the dishes, like chatting to our guides. When we're drinking cacao, speaking our words of devotion and asking Ish cacao, asking the mother of cacao, okay, I'm not going to, because so many people, when they drink cacao, they set their own intentions. But it's so lovely just to say, Mother Cacao, I am open to what you're able to show me today. May you reveal that. I'm open, I'm receptive, and we allow ourselves to be more receptive. So that's definitely the themes for 2024 that are coming through. Does that answer your question, Kate? I think I've went all around the house there.
Oh, that's so beautiful, isn't it, Kate? There's so much in there, Calista. We could unpick this for hours. I'd love to chat for hours. There's so much in there, but yeah, that real reminder, thank you, that those basics are, you know, and as you were talking, I was thinking of this image, of the cup that's, well, firstly empty, your vessel. You talked about the body and the energy body, all of that. When it's empty, how can we possibly facilitate and hold others? It's it's can't be done, and it's just so easily missed, isn't it, in our society, when we're rushing to the next thing. 10 minutes can become a lifetime of now moments, can't it, when we set that space and create that intention. So beautiful. Thank you.
I love that. If I may share, it reminds me of my singing lessons, because I go to the vocal coach, and straight away you wish to access your highest pitch and the lowest, and you want to do crazy things, and he's like, no. It's like, okay, chill. Remember, first warm up, first the basics, first the foundations, and each lesson always starts with the same, always the foundations. And I find it the same as a connection with the self-healing. Okay, everything else, all the beautiful techniques, everything new, okay, but first the basics. And I love that, because first we need to look after ourselves. It's like, you can't just straight away start singing, opera voices and everything. No, first the basics, first warm up, and it's the same. First the self-healing, first ourselves, first our path, and then maybe something extra, whatever comes on our way. So yeah, I love that, absolutely love that message to coming back to.
Yeah. I can see
say,
you up for singing. I can. What's next?
Sometimes I see students' faces glaze over when I talk about the 4 essential steps. They're like, oh no, she's not talking about this again. But these 4 essential steps are so important. And even if we just did that every day, like, do you not think in the spiritual world, especially through Instagram, sort of making it a bit more sensationalized, that it's what's the new technique, what's the new modality, what's the new meditation, but it's always the simplistic methods are the best, because they're the ones that have stood the test of time, like sitting down, lighting a candle and just staring into the candle flame, or sitting down with your journal, or sitting down with a cup of cacao, like just creating that space without all the bells and whistles is important, because that will lend consistency, and consistency will lend an advancement and evolution.
And I feel like a big part of an ego playing here, and maybe you could chat a little bit about that, because that's like coming to me. And you spoke before, and I found myself being kind of in a cycle, continuous cycle of you spoke, let's say, about being detached from the outcome, and I would go through my day and I'm like, oh wow, I'm so great because I noticed I'm not being attached to the outcome. And then I'm like, oh look, but now you feel so great because you've noticed that. Oh wow, and now I feel great because I've noticed that I've noticed. And that never ends. And I find myself, that cycle never ends. And I wonder what part, because we could find ourselves, it can kick in, and maybe not how to avoid it, but what's the ego part, what's the role that it plays, and how to maybe be aware of it, and how to kind of maybe not dissolve, but kind of live in a great partnership so that it serves us, just to be aware of that, and how can we maybe find it.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that Jesus has an ego. I believe that the saints has an ego. I don't think it's an aspect of us that will ever uh, not exist because we're in this earth school. One of the main facets is an ego, is our power of choice. Um, so yeah, it's learning. I see our ego as a secretary, and any gender here. I'm not genderizing, but a secretary who delights in telling us what's happened in the past. You know, that secretary is fantastic, best auditor ever. They know all the little mistakes. They also like to keep you safe. They also like to nitpick. They know all your fears and all your triggers, and they delight in telling you. And so I go, okay, secretary, thank you for sharing. I'm going to give you this job instead. So I give my secretary a little job, and for example, if I'm in meditation and I want that meditation, there you go. That's the ego. I want. So I have a desire. I want the meditation to flow in a certain way. I'll recognize that. I'll recognize, oh, there's a desire. Because when you're in a state of awareness, there is no desires. You're accepting what is in the moment. So once you catch it as you are, that's half the battle. Once you catch it, you see the awareness. You can give your secretary, you can give your ego a job to do. For example, okay, count. Let's count. Count in a sequence. Or I like the box breath sometimes. Again, a nice simple breath technique. Breathe in 5, hold for 5, breathe out 5, hold for 5, in a box, nice and linear, like the ego likes to be. You know, while my awareness is over here doing what it's doing. Just also, humor plays a big part. The more that you can see yourself, oh, I'm inflating, I'm a big balloon, I'm inflating off my own self importance. Where am I going to fly to? You're going to fly to nowhere that's bloody grounded if you're just full of your own wind, right? So say to yourself, okay, it's okay to know my self worth. I am a child of God. I am pure loving awareness, existing everywhere, but also nowhere. I am everything, but I'm also nothing. I just am. So you can use affirmations as well. That's another tool. I like using that, the one that I just shared every morning. And just take every moment as it comes and understand that the ego will never go, but you can be creative so that it works for you rather than is the controlling influence.
Yeah.
And also remember that the more we're on this path, it will feel like the ego intensifies, but is it really? All that's happening is we're just becoming more sharper. We're becoming more aware. That ego's always been there. If you really sat and you reflected on your life, you would see your ego going up and down. It's always been there.
Being aware of that secretary and giving them another job to do. Box breath, perfect.
Being aware of where there's outcomes, where there's judgments, where there's desires. And it's healthy to have desires, right? It's healthy to say, I would like this for my life and put it out there. That's okay. But when it is a desire that just serves self, that's when I would bring awareness and go, okay, who am I actually wanting this for? Am I just wanting this for myself? You know, a lot of light workers want fame. They want to be famous. Why do you want to be famous? Why do you want fame? Who's that going to serve? Is that going to serve other people or is that going to serve you? And that's been one that I've been playing with for a long time because it's came in at, you know, my future self has saw me talking on stage to thousands of people. And instead of, I'll go the other way, instead of inflating myself, I will take the wind out my sails. I will become very small and I'll say, no, I'm not doing that. And I'll go off and I'll do something else. I'll start jewelry making or writing another book on this subject away over here. And I won't allow myself to expand. That as well is an ego trip. So we have to be really aware of where our ego is either expanding or where it is helping us to shrink and diminish. Um, Again, everybody's going to be different here, but can we give it a job? Can we bring in the humor? Can we be the witness more? That's all going to help.
Beautiful. Oh, such an important topic, I feel. And yeah, just as you say, the ego's always been with us, but having that awareness that they are there, and then being able to separate and lovingly redirect. Yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so we have a question now that I'm particularly excited about hearing the answer to.
Oh, what is it?
Yeah, and I know you must have had so many, but could you perhaps just select one or a few of your most impactful or memorable, magical, however you would love to interpret that phrase, or angelic encounter that you've had personally, Calista, please?
The encounters that come to me the most, that are most impactful, are when the angels have chosen in the moment to become more physical, so that there is no shadow, no glimpse of any doubt in their existence. And they have done that in times where I have literally, through the ego again, dug my heels in and said, I am not part of this path anymore. I am walking away. And I become like this little child. And that can be catalyzed by different things. For example, I'll give you one time. And it might sound all doom and gloom, but there's so much beauty here. So I had left my job as a cancer research scientist, and I had set up my own business creating organic skincare infused with Reiki and angel frequencies, and working with the Queen of the Fairies, and it was just lovely. I just loved my job so much. And I came to the point of creating a shop where I would help people to connect with the fairies and the angels. And at that point, I didn't really know that angel healing would form and it would become what it is now today and everything like that. But I knew that this shop was so important, because it was also a therapy center. I know it was going to support so many people. And I had spent so long creating the center. I didn't have much money at the time, but everything came together and I was very, very grateful. And on the night before it was due to open, I came home and my partner at that time, without telling me, had cleared out all of his stuff and had left. Knowing what I know now, he had left because I had put all my love, attention, and time into creating this, which was more than I and was more than him. But he was at his level of maturity, but he had never told me, and I was so distraught. This biggest thing that was happening, and I felt the angels, they were supporting me so much. It was almost as if I couldn't even look a certain way if it wasn't in alignment with the shop. Like I really felt them so much holding me, almost like pillars. Like, this is going to happen. She can't do this, this, and this to upset or change the timeline. Like, this shop is so important. And I know why, because it was the birthplace of angel healing, unicorn healing, and so much. And we wouldn't be here today if not. Anyway, nevertheless, on a human level, I was distraught. I didn't know what was happening. I thought we'd been burgled, because there was so much stuff wasn't there. Anyway, I remember sitting in my spare room in front of the computer, and I was just tears. I was like, oh, I don't know what to do. How am I going to have the strength to open up, have this big launch party and everything the next day? And his sister, here's another thing, his sister was working in the shop, and we had formed a really good friendship. She didn't know anything about it either. Anyway, long story short, I had said to the angels, especially Archangel Michael, who at that time was literally my big brother, and he still is, and he is for many of us listening and here. He's like, the big brother. I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm just not doing this, because I'd experienced quite a lot of heartbreak in my life at that point, and this was just like the cherry on top. I was like, I just don't want. I'm not doing this anymore. If it's going to come to this point of sacrificing my own happiness, I'm not doing it anymore. Just as a little spoiled child. And then at that moment, I felt this urge to look away from the computer and look to my right. And coming through the wall was a silhouette so strongly of Archangel Michael. Oh, still gives me, triggers. It makes me cry to this day. It was so strong, and he was walking through the wall, and I saw his big shoulders and his energy. He was like, "You have to, like, this is so much more important. This is more important." Ah, and in that moment, I had such faith. I had such strength, and I knew that everything would be wonderful. And I'm crying, not because of the loss of that relationship, because honestly, I look back and I'm like, that's like a speck of dust. I'm crying because of the emotion of that coalescing of vibration, seeing him, having the angels who, all intents and purposes, are non-physical, coming into the physical to say, this is so important. We are moving worlds to be here to present ourselves in this way to you. Come on, pull yourself together. So I've had a few moments of those sort of similar times in my life where the shit's got really real. Can I swear on this podcast? It's really got tough. It's really got real. I went through rape, bulimia, self-harm, postnatal depression, which was really postnatal psychosis, because I had the most darkening thoughts, dark thoughts. I've had such heavy, dark times in my life. And whenever I've said, no, I'm going to turn my back to this path, they have come in and gone, no. And it's part of it. And, we grow so much through our suffering. And I think that's something that's not mentioned often, because people don't want to talk about suffering in case it taints them or touches them. But actually, it's part of the moving from the dualism into the wholeness, is to accept all of these times in our life. And maybe we haven't seen viscerally, as Michael presented there, but there's always been divine intervention. I truly believe that, supporting us.
Wow, thank you so much, Calista, for sharing that.
You're welcome. I don't think I've ever shared that before.
Thank you so much. Appreciating so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh. So I think many of us can relate to that, and I feel like it's so important that you share. Thank you so much. I suppose Kirsty here as well, like I can relate to that so much, and especially in those I suppose shifts or very important moments, especially that will give us those lessons, give us those working on our resilience, so that later on can it all be understood why. Going on the other spectrum now, which I love.
I know, sorry to bring it down.
No, not at all. We're all of it.
So
Enjoying
grateful.
it so much, Calista. I love that, absolutely. But going on the other spectrum, and that's personally for myself, since childhood, I will always be this, bubbly child, always lots of joy. And especially in spirituality, years looking back, there would be this need of always being very serious, that this is a very serious business, don't you dare even laugh, because this is a very, very spiritual and serious practice. It's all very, very serious, and it is, of course, on one hand. But on the other hand, especially when we sat down together with Kirsty, what's the idea behind the podcast? It was angels, magic, and joy. And I would like you to talk about the frequency of joy and how important it is to in our lives and in our practice as well. Can you give us a bit more about joy? Because I feel like personally, and with the podcast, it's our main Archeia behind as well, who brings the joy with the experiences like yourself. And I notice myself, people will come and they would share experiences, and inside of me I feel such an enormous joy, because I feel like yes, she made it through, and she experienced so much, so she can, and it's always through the tragic there is lots of joy coming at the same time. Through the experiences there's always so much joy coming through, personally how I feel it, and joy is always on the top of it, and she always comes to remind us. Can you talk a bit more about the frequency of her?
Yeah, definitely. Yet again, I feel like we're going back to contrasting, say, to 10 years ago, or maybe a little bit more. When we talk about suffering and experiences that are challenging, we reach for hope, because that was the first of the like vibratory sort of places that take us out of the darkness. And now, testament to where we are in our collective frequency, we reach for joy. We're like, well, what is the joy in this craziness? What is the punchline? What is the humor? And I love that. I love that. And the angels often will give home play. They never call it homework. They call it home play, because play, it's the play that you do to come home to the self. Um, that brings you back into that state of joy. So yeah, joy is a frequency that I feel like we need more of, that's naturally coming forward. I'm really glad that you added that into the podcast, because the name, of course, will vibrate that frequency out. But yeah, Archeia Joy and her twin Archangel Baragiel didn't come into the angel healing system until, was it 2020, when we were in global lockdown, where there was probably, for many of us, darkness, challenges, struggles, change. And what was the energy that came forward? Not hope, joy. It was joy. How can we find the joy in this? And she's here to help us to see that no matter what, there is blessings. There is blessings through everything. Through the most challenging of times, there is so much joy, there's so much blessings. And when we turn our vantage to recognize them, we naturally accrue more, we naturally create more. So it's a bubbling and effervescent, and even in her imagery in the book and the cards, she's got these bubbles of light. And when you work with her, especially when you're doing self-healing, sometimes it can feel like there's bubbles, like champagne bubbles within you, like popping and dispersing. Such a funny feeling, you know what I mean? Like an angel fizz. We should probably call it angel fizz. um and I love that about her, and I know that she's helping to promote that fizz, that effervescence in humanity right now. So the ascension path is not serious, is not having to be so dualistic and serious and like that. We can be light, and we can bring our humanity, our relatedness into the conversations like we're having today.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for being so sharing that tender story as well, Calista. Really honouring that, and thank you so much. We both really appreciate it. But Yeah, joy. For me, joy and Barakiel are always around, it seems, and it's I see joy very much. I refer to my daughter again. She one of her key vibrations is that of joy, as many children have. And whenever I'm feeling sort of perhaps in those lower frequencies, I consciously remind myself to, as you say, look for that. And I don't have to look much further than at my daughter. So I know that sounds cheesy, but it is actually true. And yeah, I think I'm just imagining if that sort of, those higher frequencies of love, joy, compassion, they could be everybody's go-to frequencies. What a different world we would live in, and what a different world we will live in. I truly, truly hope. So yeah, it's joy. It's so important, and yeah, and the bubbles, yes, the fizziness. I remember when I just would love to share this, when we came to our final assessment, a practical assessment with yourself and the teacher training module, and she was just on my shoulder saying, you really must do this. It was a form of dance. I don't know whether you remember, and I was in such resistance. I was like, we were over a lunch break, and she just say, you really need to just bring this in. I was like, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing that, I'm not dancing, I'm going to do meditation. But yeah, I gave in to her and welcomed her in, and she just took over the space for me.
We become like this rebellious little child. We're like,
Yes.
no, we're not doing it.
No, well, I'm not doing that.
And then we forget that we've probably made these agreements before we even came into this life and got this personality in this body. We're like, oh, it's nothing to do with our little small self.
Exactly.
This is it. So I'm glad that I'm glad that you've welcomed her in, and I know what you mean just by looking at our kids. There's the joy. There's the joy. And there's the hope as well. If you talk about hope for humanity, the next generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're bringing through so much wisdom. I think the world's in a really good, space with the beautiful souls that are coming in, the kids that we have. Do you not think?
Yeah, absolutely. I look at my daughter and I think, gosh, you're so wise, you're so mature, yet so embracing of all the fun aspects and the magic, and it's that sort of combination of wisdom, real soul wisdom, yeah, love and embracing joy and magic. And there's so many. How about you, Kate? I know you've got little ones too.
Yeah, I've got little masters as well. So
Yes.
much. So I've never learned so much as through those, especially through those everyday experiencing. Like I say, for me, spirituality is not that I go somewhere and sit and meditate, like those challenges, everyday challenges. And my God, I have great masters, and they're mastering, and I see, and it's so interesting to see ourselves, to find ourselves how different yet the same, as always, as a whole, all the time anyway, but how differently I'm personally approaching everything. And it's so different, especially even when I started, there would be so much, everything has to be perfect, and oh my, it has to be. And then especially even on our teaching course, the time came to share, and my husband drilling in a wall behind me, my kids running around, and and it's so interesting that, because they would always bring that and bring that and bring that, and the moment when finally it kind of diluted itself, and I'm kind of like, okay, well, this is who I am, this is what it is, then suddenly, of course, they stop doing it, and they don't need to give me lessons. I mean, this is brilliant. It's amazing how it's and especially the frequency of joy is just so close to my heart. So she always comes and comes through the laughter, and I feel her always. But I love that fizziness, and I love this pop. She's coming up in here and here. She's coming she's so close to my heart. And speaking of moving forward and about this year, Calista, would you like to share, because we are curious as well, we know a bit here, but would you like to share what can we expect from you this year? Where can we find you? What can we expect? What's waiting for us? What more we can get from you?
I'm waiting to see as well. Every day it's different. Well, I know that there is going to be a dragon modality coming through, so that's exciting. And I'm finishing off the Unicorn Tarot, and also a Unicorn Oracle has just started up as well. So that's exciting. And I want to write a book on angelic feng shui, because the last book, there's a chapter on angelic feng shui, but honestly, there is so much. There is so much to share about it, from how we can partner the land, how we can partner the overlighting diva of our particular land, um, heal our home, empower our home, speak to the consciousness of every room. Like, these things aren't talked about, but they create such big shifts. So I feel really passionate about that. And I'll wait to see what else comes around the corner. Last year, we're holding space for, on a regular basis anyway, a lot of Ascension workshops. And while I still want to do that, I just feel it's more about putting a lot of these teachings down in the written word, whether it's a book or a deck, that feels important. Um, and that's not the most abundant path when you're a single mom and you want to feed your babies. Like, that doesn't bring in a lot of money, but it doesn't matter because I trust the path. And I think that's a great teaching for us all, is as we're changing and expanding, our world might look completely different as it used to look. I used to come from cancer research where there was a lot of financial prosperity, and then I went and was pretty much broke setting up my own company. But you have to trust. You have to trust the path and just take these leaps. I feel like I'm saying this for one of you here, maybe, or like people that are listening. We just have to take the leaps and just keep trusting. So that's what I'm doing throughout this year. And I would love to connect with anyone who wants to reach out at calistaascension.com and Calista Ascension on Instagram and Facebook. And every Monday there's something called Magic Monday, where we tune in for the week ahead, and sometimes the angels come in, or the unicorns, and what they share sometimes blows my socks off. Sometimes it's just very nice and positive, but sometimes it's, the jewels in those transmissions are wonderful. So it'd be great if you want to tune into them, and they're free.
Thank you so
much. Thank you so much, Calista and Kirsty, for being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So much amazing stuff coming through, Calista. So we can't wait for all of that. And again, deep bow. We're so thrilled you've been here. And love our listeners to connect with you, because I know they're going to benefit from your magic.
Thank you, sisters.
Thank you. Bye.